Just as the trees need your fire, this is my one desire. Blackened and scarred, I feel life sometimes hard. Yet through it all, new life begins. I stand here now, strong and renewed. I stand here now, with love bursting through. I stand here now, strong and renewed, knowing it comes from Him. Jesus, you are my friend. I stand here now, strong and renewed. I stand here now, with love bursting through. I stand here now, strong and renewed, knowing it comes from Him. Jesus, you are my friend. My love, it comes from you. Your love will see me through. Your fire, it makes me new, with a burning desire to give. My life, it comes from you. Your love will see me through. Your fire, it makes me new, with a burning desire to give all that I am back to you.
Welcome. These are extraordinary times. Normally, on the third Sunday of Easter, we would be gathering together in large groups to celebrate the glorious news that the divine's life is stronger than all our hate and death dealing. We would sing and shake hands, read and pray, laugh and eat together. None of this is possible this year. It feels like we have had to give up much for the sake of this virus. For me, there's nothing I like better than to pack up the four-wheel drive and head to our friend's place at Wentworth, New South Wales for a few days. Camping, riding motorbikes, sitting by a campfire with my kids and my 6 grandchildren. But this year, no. But later, yes. When we have to give up some of the things you're passionate about, some of the things that fire your enthusiasm, then you know what it means to make a sacrifice. I guess getting in touch with the feelings of sacrifice is special, especially appropriate this weekend as we mark Anzac Day. And recall the sacrifice that so many men and women have made for us, wondering perhaps about what fired their hearts as they offered themselves for service. Today's theme of Hearts on Fire is pertinent as we reflect on the story of the two people's encounter with Jesus on the road to Emmaus, an encounter that left them asking, "Did not our hearts burn within us as he spoke?" Today we will hear from a few people about the things that set their hearts on fire, and we'll be invited to consider what, in this strange COVID-19 world, we are truly passionate about, what really matters to us. So welcome to our online gathering of the Heartwell and Surrey Hills Churches of Christ. We hope to inspire you as we all share together.
Well, thank you, Barb, for your welcome, and thanks too for the images of some of the areas of your passion that we're able to see as you welcomed us to this gathering. As you say, the interplay between passion and sacrifice is a very apt motif for this weekend, where we mark Anzac Day and also the third Sunday of Easter. As an aside, I want to acknowledge that one of the sacrifices that I'm making because of the COVID-19 situation is that I don't get to see the annual Anzac Day footy game between the Mighty Pies and the Bombers, and I'll miss that. But I was able to watch the replay of the 2014 game during the week, and then last night caught the replay of the 2019 game, both wins by Collingwood, of course, so I did get my fix that way. Can I add my welcome to that which Barb has already extended? My name's David Brooker. I'm one of the ministers at the Avenue Church of Christ in Surrey Hills, and we're delighted to welcome you to our online gathering this morning. Can I invite you into this space with a sense of openness to the Spirit of the Creator, with an expectation of encounter with the Spirit of wisdom, and with a willingness to journey with the Spirit of Jesus. Welcome.
Why not take a moment to centre your thoughts and your feelings around the theme of today's gathering? What are some of the things that fire your heart? Things you enjoy, things that stir you to action? And who are some of the people who fire your heart? People whose presence is life-giving for you. Maybe people who share or at least tolerate your passions. Why not take a few moments to bring those people to mind? Some of them may be in the room with you right now. Others you may not have seen for a little while. As you sit quietly, feeling the gentle rhythm of your breath, call them to mind. Picture them. Figuratively reach out to them. Feel connected to them. And maybe send them your loving kindness as we sit for just a moment in this stillness.
So now we come to the lighting of the Christ candle, and as I light the candle here, you may like to light a candle at your place if you have one handy. And as we do so, this day it will be a symbol to us both perhaps of the eternal Anzac flame, the lest we forget motif, and also as a spark of light or a sense of connection that links us with those people that we have just called to mind and links us with the people who share this gathering with us today. Let us together light our Christ candles.
So much of the teaching and action of Jesus takes place on the road. It's as though the gospel writers are giving us a metaphor for the journey of life as we walk with Jesus through the towns and the hillsides of Galilee. It's no surprise that long before anyone invented the term Christian, the followers of Jesus were known as people of the way. Judith is about to tell us a story. It's probably a story you've heard before, and it's a story about a journey. Its setting is a road. Because you've heard the story before, you might be tempted to read ahead, so to speak, to jump straight to the ending in your own mind. Please don't. As Judith tells the story, let it wash over you as if you were hearing it for the very first time. And pay attention to the metaphor. See what parallels you might discern between this ancient story and your own road, your own life journey. Where does your track intersect with the story? And where does it diverge? What sense can you make of this story if you listen with senses alert to the signposts along the way? Thanks, Judith. And we note the signs of your passions in the background as you read.
I'm reading from Luke chapter 24, verses 13 to 35. Now on that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you walk along?" They stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in these days?" He asked them, "What things?" They replied, "The things about Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since these things took place. Moreover, some women of our group astounded us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body there, they came back and told us that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the woman had said, but they did not see him." Then he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" Then beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he was going on. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening, and the day is nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour they got up and returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road, and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread.
So what do you make of that story? Is it historical, to be understood literally? Is it perhaps mystical, to be interpreted symbolically? Is it a parable of sorts? Is it a miracle story, or is it fabricated? Or is it, and I know I've shown my hand a little here earlier, is it metaphorical? Is it a metaphor for the journey of life? A journey from joy to despair, through sorrow and grief, to hope, and then to dawning insight, and then to awareness, to life-changing awareness. While acknowledging that any of the above interpretations could be sustained by an analysis of the story, I want to actually play around a bit this morning with the assertion that this story is indeed a metaphor for the life experience of most people of faith. And I think the clues are in the story itself. These two men have been walking for some time when they strangely become aware of the presence of a third person, a person who is unnamed and unrecognized. So is this a real presence, or is this a mystical presence? And their discussion with this unrecognized person is characterized as a review of the whole scripture, from Moses to the prophets, it says, as they grapple with the meaning of the events of this past week. Could this not simply be a rigorous conversation between two friends as they try to make sense of their disappointment and their loss? And then they sit down for a meal, possibly with that last meal they shared with Jesus fresh in their memory. And as they sit together, and it's as though they pause and take a deep breath, their eyes are opened. And yet they don't actually see anyone. This strange presence vanishes and they don't ever see his presence. Could this not be a portrayal of the moment of dawning realization, of profound insight as they suddenly get it? Were not our hearts burning within us, they said. Jesus lives. Not in the way we might have expected, but in a much more profound and significant way. His Spirit abides with us and guides us, just as though he were still physically present. He is here, they say, and they rush back to tell their friends what they have discovered. Now, I accept that you could argue for a very different interpretation than the one I've just made. But I actually much prefer to believe that the risen Jesus is present to these travellers in a mystical, unembodied way, rather than a physical, tangible way. Because being present in a mystical and unembodied way makes the experience all the more accessible to me here in 2020. Does it diminish the miracle? Not to my mind. In fact, it amplifies it, because it means that this miracle transcends space and time. What I glean from this fantastic story is that two people struggling in the midst of their despair, in the midst of their sorrow and their grief, had one of those aha moments when things fell into place in a way they never expected. in a moment of marvellous insight, if you like, which they attributed to some spiritual awareness, they got the ultimate meaning and purpose and platform of the teaching of Jesus. And the understanding set their hearts on fire. It stoked a passion that would ultimately infect the whole group of early disciples, that would then be caught by hundreds of followers and by increasing numbers of devotees, by rulers and nations and movements and cultures. I wonder what it was that set their hearts on fire, that so stirred their passion. I doubt that it was simply the fact that the Spirit of Jesus was real to them, although that would have been significant. But that in itself would not have been enough to spawn a movement that would change the world. The passion is far more likely to have been stirred by the teaching of this Jesus, by the values and principles that he espoused. Values that had been challenged and seemingly put to death by his crucifixion. But now he was alive, at work within the people who were touched by his Spirit. And the teachings, values and principles that he espoused, they're back on the table. And it was the teachings, the values and the principles that would change the lives of people and change the course of history. Wouldn't it be good if we could distill that teaching and those values and those principles into a catchy, easy to sell practice for today's world? Well, it's not rocket science. It's been done, and it is being practiced, and it is changing the world. The more cliched version goes by the name of love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. If everybody could only love each other, they say, the problems of the world would be solved. And I guess that's true. But it seems to me that the word love has been so compromised in our society by aberrant use, so cheapened, if you like, by crass commercial applications, that it has lost its gloss, lost its power to evoke real change. Most people simply don't understand the real meaning of love anymore. But there's another word that I want to suggest, a common but very rich word that might just be more powerful. And that word is kindness. I've actually been holding that word in my soul as my word for the year. And it was enriched by my reading of this little book, which was given to me as a Christmas present by the staff team at the Avenue Church of Christ. It's a book called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, an intriguing title. And it's full of delightful pictures and wisdom sayings, like this one. The boy and the mole are sitting in a tree. And the mole says to the boy, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" "Kind," said the boy. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Kind. Kindness is a mindset, a way of being that is not dependent on circumstances. It's not like, oh, well, I'll be kind when the universe treats me well. Kindness is a way of life that bears fruit within us and beyond us. Kindness isn't simply choosing to do no harm. Kindness is actively choosing to do good. When we practice kindness, it actually evokes a warmth, a lightness of heart, a bubbling of spirit, if you like, that issues within us as strength and joy and satisfaction that is unaffected by external experiences or internal feelings. When we practice kindness, it works beyond us to offer grace and encouragement and unexpected warmth and serendipitous delight, not just to the object of our kindness, but to all who witness the exercise of this gift. And even further, the practice of kindness is not just human to human. When we offer kindness to creation, to earth and all its creatures, it releases healing and restoration in a bruised and hurting world. Is it such a stretch, do you think, to imagine that the practice of kindness was the life-changing awareness, the cataclysmic insight about which the early followers of Jesus became so passionate?
Here's an invitation, one that I hope you won't refuse. It's an invitation to experiment with the practice of kindness. Do it now. Take a moment to reflect on some recent kindness that you have received. Give thanks for that experience. Now take a moment to reflect on a recent kindness that you have offered to someone else. How did you feel in that moment? Give thanks for that too. And finally, identify some random act of kindness that you can do today, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe each day this coming week. And hold that intention in your mind to live and act with kindness.
As we come to communion this morning, I wanted to reflect on today's Bible reading from Luke. In the Bible reading, two people on the road to Emmaus have an encounter with Jesus. Jesus acts like he wasn't aware of what had been happening recently in Jerusalem, and they speak to him about this Jesus person who they said was a prophet and described him as mighty in deed and word before God and all people. They also talked about how he was condemned to death by their chief priests and leaders, and it seemed like their hope that Jesus would liberate Israel was dashed. But they then talked about how astounded they were by the supposed news Jesus was now alive, but they didn't seem to know quite what to make of that. And then they realised Jesus was right there with them. You can clearly get why their hearts were on fire. Mine would have been too. They were obviously so excited that the Lord had risen indeed. Suddenly their hope had skyrocketed. Jesus then admonishes them for not believing what the prophets had stated about him, and follows this up with some teaching about what the prophets had to say about him in the scriptures. I've got to say I would have loved to have been there for that. And then after breaking bread with them, Jesus just disappears. As we share communion this morning, Jesus is right here with us now. He is part of each one of us. He loves us and wants a deep relationship with each one of us. That is hearts on fire stuff, to be loved for just being who we are. This morning I'm suggesting that in your own time, you take your symbols of bread and wine when it suits you. We'll have about a minute's silence for you to do that. And then I'd like you to reflect in this time on that beautiful verse in Psalm 46. Be still and know that I am God. And then I'll finish with a prayer. Let's join in communion together and be still and know our God. Loving God, help us to walk with you through this tough time of COVID-19 and to know your love deeply. Challenge us about what you want our hearts to be on fire about, and help us to love and support each other and all those in our community. Amen.
So you've been watching the online gathering of the Surrey Hills and Heartwell Churches of Christ in Melbourne, Australia. Thank you for being with us this morning, and thank you too to Barb Richards, to Judith and to John for their leadership during the morning. Thanks to Joy Groves and to Ernie Kemplay for their music. We will be online again at 10 a.m. next Sunday morning, and as always, you're very welcome to join us. We'd love to have you with us.
May I send us out with this little blessing from William Arthur Ward. The adventure of life is to learn. The goal of life is to grow. The nature of life is to change. The challenge of life is to overcome. The essence of life is to care. The secret of life is to dare. The beauty of life is to give. The joy of life is to love. Amen.
Just as the trees need your fire, this is my one desire. Blackened and scarred, I feel life sometimes hard. Yet through it all, new life begins. I stand here now, strong and renewed. I stand here now, with love bursting through. I stand here now, strong and renewed, knowing it comes from Him. Jesus, you are my friend, my life, it comes from you. Your love will see me through. Your fire, it makes me new. The burning desire to give. My life, it comes from you. Your love will see me through. Your fire, it makes me new. The burning desire to give all that I am, all that I am, all that I am, back to you. Just as the trees need your fire,